So, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to our next session titled Marketing Transformation in the Age of AI. In this session, we will delve into the dynamic world of marketing transformation, exploring the critical imperative and strategic actions needed to thrive in an era of rapid change. So please join me in welcoming our esteemed thought leader, our leader Rahul Welde. Mr. Welde is a board member and advisor to several companies and is here all the way from the UK to share his perspective with us. Please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know we've been here all morning almost, and everybody's looking forward to lunch. If I can request everyone to just stand up. Just stand up and free your arms. I know everybody's been sitting for quite a long time, so you probably like this a lot. Just stand up. It's quite an easy instruction, actually. And just clap your hands. Keep your mobile phones and clap your hands. Now this is a very unusual start. You can sit down. As you sit down, don't pick up your mobile phones. Leave them on the desk. Go with me on a ride for the next 15-20 minutes. Is that okay? And hopefully sort of it wakes everybody up, brings some energy. We're going to talk about a very exciting topic, and I'm really delighted to be here. Thanks to Rohit and Himanshu for inviting me. I'm visiting Jakarta after nearly 12 years, and what a transformation that I've seen in this decade in Jakarta. But I'm going to talk about a subject which is about the transformation that's taking place around us. And I think it's fair to say that all of you are very familiar with what's going on and the so-called age of AI that is upon us. But I draw a parallel where a few years ago, and I'm going to ask you to guess how many years ago this was, there was this big industrial revolution. Essentially, the world changed from making things by hand to machines making things. I don't know if somebody who are those historians might remember how long back that was. Any guesses how long that back was? That was about 1760, so several hundred years ago, couple of hundred years ago, the world moved from making things by hand to making things by the machine. AI, arguably, is that seminal change that is taking place in the world right now. And we don't quite know how profound it will be. Just the way in 1760, people across the world did not know what to do with these machines and where it would go. So if you had a conference like these, they didn't have conference like these, but if there was one, they would be talking about what's going to happen, right? Fast forward now, and I'm going to talk about three themes, really. And these are thought provocations from my experiences and my perspectives. I spent a little over 30 years with Unilever, the last role leading digital transformation globally. For the last 2 years, I'm advising boards and corporations, companies on the whole area of digital transformation, of course, of which AI is a big part. For the purpose of this session, I just want you to put your thinking and questioning hats on. So question what I say, think about what I say, and it's not with reference to any one brand or the other, any one sector or the other, but there are three themes I'll touch on and a couple of provoking points. The first of which is technology, of course. Most important, I want to share a few thoughts with you. Second is about brands, and the third is about people. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this chart and this concept of the hype cycle. Now, this is a very important concept where everything that has happened in the world of technology has gone through a hype cycle of some sort. There are any number of technology triggers that you can think of in the last decade or so. Anybody remember the metaverse? Right? Metaverse was a big thing a couple of years ago, and visualize where it might be on this hype cycle. It was going to change the world, and then really it did not deliver. But something like the smartphones, arguably the smartphones on this hype cycle, a big technology trigger a few years back, is delivered on the expectations and maybe even actually plateaued right at the top. Now the question on this chart is, where do we think are we on AI when it comes to the hype cycle? Now somebody could argue that we are right at the beginning, and actually there's a lot more to come, and the expectations, we don't even know what to expect. Somebody could argue that, oh no, we are in the middle of that upward curve. Somebody could argue that, no, there's just too much of expectations. It's going to change lives. Actually, none of that is happening, right? we're definitely somewhere on that slope going up, whether at the beginning, at the foothills, or whether in the middle, or whether at the top. And hopefully, all these expectations that we have about AI would actually get delivered as we look at the future. The 4 key themes. The first about it, and regardless of where you're a part of the ecosystem, whether you're in the sales side of the business, whether in the buy side of the business, a brand, an agency, it doesn't matter. I think there are 4 themes to think of. The first of which is really about experimenting and innovating. So if you're in this room and you haven't experimented with AI, you haven't begun your journey, the time to start was yesterday, not today. The second is, of course, everybody in this room is here because you're already experimenting and innovating on AI. I think the key challenge, whether you're in a leadership position or anywhere in the organization, is whether there is adoption. Adoption is a very different theme from experimentation and innovation. Adoption really means that if you have 5 people in the organization who are playing around with AI, when you go back tomorrow to your workplace, make it 25. If you have 25 people who are playing with AI, make it 125. Whatever the size of your organization, within the next 1 month, 5x of the number of people need to start playing with AI. That is when you start beginning to have adoption. Otherwise, we are just talking about AI, experimentation, innovation, the cool stuff. The second important thing is, if you have a glass of wine once in a week, it doesn't make you an alcoholic. I'm not suggesting that you have a glass of wine every day or many and become an alcoholic, but I'm definitely suggesting that if you want to really adopt AI in your organization, you got to do it day in, day out, maybe twice a day, maybe thrice a day. Like you use WhatsApp or like you use Instagram or TikTok or whatever is your channel. The reason why TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp are so big is because they have been adopted by all of us. Anybody here in the room doesn't know WhatsApp or doesn't use WhatsApp? I'd really love to meet you. Unlikely there'll be somebody I meet. However, even that is not going to be enough, because if you really look at everything that's happening around AI, it is about adoption at best. Big companies, big corporations are adopting AI. Hundreds of people have been employed, but that's not enough. Very little, almost very little is happening which is truly at scale. AI deployment, AI application at scale, still not in play, some time away. That brings me to this next question, and why is this important? This is important because we know that with better content production, better delivery, publishing, AI, and with the use of AI, you can really make me buy, whether it's on e-commerce in some kind, you can put enough triggers for me to buy. The question is, at least as we speak, AI cannot make you cry. AI cannot make you laugh. AI has no compassion. AI has no greed. Unfortunately, greed is a fairly large motivator in all marketing decisions. AI has no fear. AI cannot instill fear in you, at least as of now. Now, of course, many of the people in the industry are trying to think of how actually this can go forward, and artificial general intelligence or making AI truly human, etc. Experts have argued that it is 8 years away. Somebody says it's 10 years away. Somebody says it's 2035. Whatever it is, it's quite some time away. But the reality is that we have to, therefore, in adoption, in innovation, in trying to do things at scale, also understand that there are some limitations that AI has. I like to think of, this is important because this is how we create value as marketers. Our marketer's job is to create value. And here on one axis, you will see being innovative or cool, innovation. On the other axis, you will see impact that you make. And this is a simple 2x2 framework, which actually can apply to pretty much anything that we do in marketing. You will see that large number of initiatives are actually in that quadrant of they're quite innovative and they're generating some impact, but they're really not shifting the needle of your business, right? This is true for most companies. Of course, the big tech companies, the Magnificent Seven and some others are seeing dramatic impact. But by and large, in the ecosystem, most of the initiatives are taking place in an area where they're nice, they're cool, they're innovative, and they're generating some impact. Some are very innovative, but still not generating impact. There are some others which are generating impact, but actually, quite frankly, they're not innovative. Everybody's talking about AI, so let me add it into my sales kit, sort of stuff. So most people are operating in those 3 quadrants. And I am yet to find one example where it is very innovative. Again, let me be super clear. This is outside the Magnificent Seven or the big tech companies. I'm talking of the rest of the ecosystem, where there is very high innovation and it is impacting at scale. Now, of course, it will happen in the future, and I'm sure that we will see all of that. And in preparation for this talk, I spoke to half a dozen clients of mine, corporations across the world, to say, really, I'm looking for an example which says very high on innovation, and it has changed. It has made big impact at scale. Unfortunately, I haven't found any, so I have come to Jakarta. Hopefully, there is one which is high impact, very innovative, at scale, and I can walk away during lunch with that example. The second thing to think about is the industry and the whole conversation on AI is excessively focused. Sorry, I shouldn't use the word excessively. Is definitely focused on cost. It's focused on efficiencies. The question is, oh, I'll make 1,000 ads for you at 50% of the time, at 30% less cost, and you'll save a lot of money. And that is important. Who can deny? Of course it is important. Very few conversations are about applying AI or artificial intelligence or any other form of technology to make better ads. Fewer ads, actually. Fewer ads which are better and deliver 20% growth. I promise you that if you actually have a proposition that is as solid as that, it will grab attention. Of course, there are challenges of how do you attribute growth to that specific piece of advertising, or will you really deliver, etc., because cost efficiency is always easier to measure. But this is another big challenge to overcome, which is to make sure that there's a right balance between the effectiveness and efficiency conversation. Brand proliferation. There's brands everywhere. There was a time 5, 10, 20 years ago when we had top 50 brands and they meant something. Then there was another time when another 50 or 100 or 200 got added. Then another 50, 100, not really, actually 1,000 got added. And last few years we've seen absolute explosive growth of number of brands. Largely to do with all the commerce channels, largely to do with easy commerce, quick commerce, whatever you want to call it. And who's to say, and if I'm sure many of you follow what's happening in China, there's pretty much a few brands launched every day, leave alone every 6 months or every 1 year. Those days are gone where you do a relaunch or launch a brand and a competitor will come 6 months. The competitor is coming to you every day. Now that's a great opportunity. Certainly if you're on the sales side of the equation, if you're an agency, you have to reframe the world. It is no longer about the big brands alone. I come from a big brand family. All my career I spent in a big brand, so I value them very much, and they're very important. But the reality is that there is an opportunity among the small brands. And you've probably seen this before. Very often in the industry, we talk about the long tail. And the question really to ask is, what do you want to go after? Some of the most successful companies on the planet with the highest valuation that you can think of, $1 trillion companies, actually have not looked at enterprise customers at all. They've been nice to all the big companies in the world, and they've been nice to big corporations, but they've really cracked the long tail. The pizza shop around the corner, the garment shop, a few miles away, a restaurant, a hotel, or whatever it might be. So the point over here is that whether it is the long tail, or whether it is the attractive middle, or whether it's the enterprise customer, these are very important choices to make on where you want to play, where is actually the value creation going to take place. And as you can imagine, there are totally different solutions for all these three. Time after time, marketers are making the mistake of looking at the entire piece and spectrum and actually having almost sort of the wrong things taking place. The next point is again a very interesting one. And of course, everybody has the axis has shifted very much in favor of performance marketing. Can I ship more product? Can I sell more cases? Can I collect more money? Will it happen tomorrow? Will it happen day after tomorrow? What are the KPIs? Can I measure them? Full funnel marketing, whatever name called, the interest is only in sales. A lot of short-termism. But the reality is that great brands, whether big or small, it doesn't matter. Even the small doesn't matter, by the way. Make no mistake, the small brands are also building for the long term. They may stay small, but they may be profitable, right? So the question from an AI standpoint, which is, again, a lot of focus on performance marketing, all marketers should think really, what are you building for? And long-term brand and long-term value creation is a totally different game. And of course, AI can help us. So the question here is not performance marketing or long-term brand building. It is about both. And we know that which is one of the best brands in the world. If I said, think of the best beverage brand in the world, and hopefully sort of you'll be thinking ideally in a color which is red. If you are not red, you might think blue, but you won't go beyond red and blue because there are only two brands which have really embedded memory structures which have been built for the long term. And guess what do they do in performance marketing? Very little. If I said a big energy drink, and you think of the last ad you saw or how you know about it, I think it's already you're thinking of what are the energy drinks, but there's perhaps one which comes to mind, which is also about a sports team, a Formula One team. It's also about some adventure sports. And these memory structures are building where really after a point in time, they don't need to spend on performance marketing. They could, but they don't need to. So I think this is a very important thing for when we think of marketing transformation in the age of AI, that we are focused equally, if not equally, a lot, and don't take our eye off this idea of long-term brand building. Nothing of what I described in decision-making terms, in execution terms, in assessment terms happens without people. People are the absolute foundation block of what we do. And there are some really profound implications to this subject, this topic of talent and people in this age of AI. The first of which is an important one, which is the entire game has changed or is changing, and the workforce is becoming, I'm calling it the liquid workforce, various words have been used, but the world is shifting to a gig economy. We all have to understand that the people who want to work, including many of us in the room, actually don't want jobs anymore. It's quite interesting. Don't want to build careers with the same company like I did for 30 over years. So they have a very different perspective. They have a very different perspective. Call it the gig economy, here today, somewhere else tomorrow, this sector. There's so many dimensions of this liquid workforce. Of course, the most talked about is whether you're going to office for 3 days or 4 days. In 3 days, you're a great guy. 2 days, you're not, etc. But leave aside, that is only one part of it, which is whether hybrid or not. The bigger theme is how do you attract talent? How do you retain talent? How do you motivate talent? How do you manage talent? No longer will we ask a CEO of a company, how big are you as a CEO? How many people you have? It's an irrelevant question. It is completely going to be irrelevant. And with an employee of one, you'll be running a $100 million enterprise. It's quite possible. So gig economy. Last theme on people, and this is again a very important dimension. Things are changing every day. And therefore, what is the organizational, individual, and the departmental capacity to learn? What is the learning quotient of an organization? What is the learning agility? How fast can you learn? Keep pace with what's going on. Very, very important. And I think as you see two other words over there, you have to distinguish between deep expertise, where you need a few people. You don't need everybody with deep expertise. And you need a lot of people with flexible expertise. Completely different dimension. You need a few people who are very loyal to the company or the organization. The rest, quite frankly, they can do whatever they like. Who would have thought that we would say that actually it's okay that if you don't have loyalty anymore to a company? It's a very different paradigm which is coming through in this modern age. And of course, all of these things only happen because of great culture. Great culture in a company, and everything that I spoke about is actually creates that culture. Customer centricity, collaborative working, learning agility, all of these are themes with which you build a culture. And none of this can happen unless you have exceptional leadership. People in the room, many of you, I think, are already taking the lead on various aspects in this modern marketing age. And to sum it up really, actually, there are many dimensions, whether it is the change in technology, whether it is change in the brand and the marketing landscape, or indeed, like I said, what's happening in the area of people management. And regardless of where you are in the ecosystem, whether you're, even in HR, actually, life has become very interesting. In finance, it has become interesting because the value creation models are different. And I think it's fair to say that in this age of AI, we're really looking at extraordinarily exciting times. And I encourage everybody to just ask two questions. One is, how are you actually seizing the opportunities and confronting these challenges which this modern marketing age presents to you? And most important, profound question is, in your workplace, in whatever you do, how are you really breaking new ground, creating something new? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. I look forward to visiting Jakarta again sometime. Indeed, I'll be around during lunch and so on. So happy to exchange a few notes and hear your reflections on some of the thoughts and provocations that I shared. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahul Welde, who flew all the way from the UK. Please stay on the stage. I would like to kindly invite Ms. Shanti Tolani to take a picture together with Mr. Welde. Okay, a few people are joining Mr. Welde for the photo session today. In the count of 3, 1, 2, and 3. Once again, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you so much. That's really wonderful.